What does it mean to correct in love?
If you have a child and the child did what is wrong and you want to correct the child, how will you do it? That is what it means to correct in love.
What if the person is older?
It's not about the age of the person, it's about the motive behind the correction. Whether the person is older or younger, you can correct the person in love if your motive for the correction is because you love the person and you want them to become better and not to repeat the same mistake again.
Does it require shouting or correcting the person in public?
Well, it depends. Sometimes it requires shouting, but the shouting is not the product of an outburst of uncontrolled emotions, but out of understanding of the human nature that some people, it is necessary for you to, introduce that level of sternness in the rebuke or the correction in order for it to sink. So you could raise your voice sometimes, but not out of uncontrolled emotional outburst, but out of understanding of human nature. And yes, sometimes you can correct a person publicly or you may correct the person privately. It's all circumstantial and then it's people dependent. There are people that public correction does better for them than private correction. First of all, understand the person you are dealing with and then know if it's wiser in that scenario to do it publicly or secretly. Of course, there are times where public corrections are needed, not for the sake of the person alone, but for others who have learned the bad example so that they can also take caution and be corrected. But your motive behind every correction is always important and must be put on the table. Before you correct a person, please check your motive very well. Are you doing that out of love, you want to make things better, or you are just trying to justify yourself or prove a point? If you have a wrong motive for correction or correcting somebody, you have no business correcting the person. So sometimes you may introduce that sternness shout. In fact, just like sometimes it's necessary to introduce even flogging for children. You don't flog the child out of an outburst of uncontrolled emotions, but it is your understanding of human nature. These things are like medications, and of course you know medications are bitter for the child, but in the long run you know that the medication is good for the child. Hence, sometimes you give the child medication not because you hate them, but because you love them and you know the medication is going to be good for them. So this corrections and these methods that you apply, some of them may be unpleasant, but in the long run you understand that they are good for the person. Like I said, they are like medication, and you know in medication there is correct dosage. If you overdose, you can cause problem. You underdose, you can cause problem. So in the process of even trying to treat something, if you are not careful with the method of treatment, you may leave the thing worse than you met it. So everything has to be introduced with moderation. There are times you may have to raise your voice at the person, but let your raising voice not be a product of an outburst of uncontrolled emotions, but a product of understanding that such is necessary to be able to instill the warning or the correction or the caution you are trying to give to the person. It's just like when you see a person trying to fall into a ditch or something, you shout at them, a car horn at you. Of course it can startle the person, but that startling is necessary to jolt the person back to reality so that the person can escape the danger in front of them. If a person is about to fall into a well, you cannot be saying gently and casually and smiling, you are about to fall into a well. There's a level of sternness that is needed to be able to jolt the person back to reality. It is this understanding that would guide whatever method you are applying when you are trying to correct somebody, whether you may need to apply force, or you may need to be gentle, or you may need to be stern, or you may need to shout, or you may do it in public or in private. The goal is to ensure that the person becomes better, take warning and take caution, and not fall into danger or into error or repeat the same thing again. Your goal is always to help a person. You are not trying to prove a point, justify yourself, or condemn the person or destroy the person in the process. You are doing that to help. Let the motive behind the correction always be to help and not to cause harm, and that way you are good to go.
Thank you. One last question, please. In a case where you heard something about me and you want to correct me, how will you go about it?
Well, if I heard something about you and I want to tell you about it, first of all, I think it's important you understand the person you are dealing with in the first place. Some people, they are okay when you confront them directly and tell them, this is what I heard you did this place, you need to take. They would take it with joy and thank you for coming to them and approaching them like that. Other people may not take it well. So you would have to find a method of approach that is better. Some people you may even come as indirect as possible. Always know your goal is to ensure that the person is helped. You're not trying to destroy the person, prove a point to justify yourself. You are trying to help the person. So find out the approach that is best for the subject you are dealing with. David, for example, one time God sent a prophet with a message to warn him about something. The prophet had to look for a subtle way to, introduce introduce the message of the Lord. The goal is to bring the king to repentance. At the end of the day, the king repented. He had come with a very, very strict confrontational way of approach, it might have ended up bad for both himself and for the king, and the goal will not be achieved. So oftentimes your goal is to help the person. Hence, you should first of all look for the way that will be more effective in, calling the person's attention and getting the person back to order. So if I hear something about you, the first thing will be, what kind of person are you, and what method of approach will be best for me to approach? Should I come to you directly and tell you things, or should I come indirectly or use wisdom? All these things are necessary because my goal is to help you at the end of the day. So it's very important.
Thank you, sir, for the response, and thanks to everyone who watched. If this blessed you, like the video, share it, and if you have something to add, leave it in the comment box. God bless you.